Alright, hello guys. In this video we're going to be talking about Winter Storm Gage once again. Today we're not going to be talking about the Midwest or the Great Lakes portions of this storm, but we are going to be talking about the northeastern United States as Gage looks to actually impact those areas with over possibly 10 inches of snow and lots of ice. We will get into that as we get further into the video though. But before I get started with this video though, I would ask that you do subscribe if you do like weather related content, and also make sure to share this with your friends and family on social medias if they do live in the affected regions. Let's get right into things. First things first, we're looking at our current radar. So I am going to talk a little bit about the Midwest actually. I did want to show the current radar for this storm right now, and it's heading in a northern direction. This isn't a moving radar, but this was as of 5:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time this morning. It's 11 as I'm making this video on December 28th, but we do have some snowfall going on for Colorado, Wyoming, South Dakota, Minnesota, and then down through Wisconsin as well. We are going to see this start to fill out more and more and become very, very intense as we see those blizzard conditions start to take place for South Dakota, North Dakota, and Minnesota. We already see some of the heavier snow indicated by those blue colors, so it is starting to really pick up. And I actually looked at the radar when it was moving, and I can see that it is filling out a lot. So things are moving on as expected, and my snowfall forecast stays the same for the Midwestern portion of the United States. But we're about to talk about our first off, our winter storm warnings, watches, and advisories, and then we're actually going to get into our Futurecast Radar for the northeastern United States, which is going to be super exciting. Alright, so as you can see, this is our current winter storm watches and warnings, and then our winter weather advisories as well. We have winter weather advisories surrounding the winter storm warnings up there for Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Minnesota, as well as some down there in New Mexico. So all those pink colors are winter storm warnings. I'm expecting to see some blizzard warnings go up soon as well. Let's take a zoomed in look at New England though, since that's particularly what we're going to be talking about in this video. And we do see some winter storm watches there for Massachusetts and Connecticut, as we're expecting lots of ice and potentially some snow for those areas as well. Let's get started with our Futurecast Radar though now, and we're going to be looking at our NAM model and then transitioning over to our Canadian model later on. I'll let you know when that transition happens, but this is going to be as of Sunday, December 29th, kind of afternoon, evening time, and we see lots of rain moving into Kentucky, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and upstate New York, but we see some of those pinks up there in Canada that's going to make its way into New England and upstate New York. Let's move on one, and we start to see those pinks now making their move into New York and then even areas in Massachusetts as we see the precipitation move further north. That's going to be late on Sunday evening, December 29th. Now we're about to move on where we're going to start to see some of those blues show up for the northeastern United States, and we're going to start to see some moderate to heavy snow actually. It's becoming better and better looking for more and more snow for the northeastern United States, so I am expecting a pretty decent snowstorm for you guys up there. Alright, so as you can see, this is going to be by about 10 p.m. on December 29th, Sunday time, and we see a lot of those pinks and purples showing up for New York, southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire, and then some of the portions in Massachusetts and Connecticut as well, but we do start to see some blues showing up for Vermont and New Hampshire. Let's move on again, and this is going to be more like 5 a.m. on December 30th, Monday, and we start to see a lot of that blue show up for a bit of upstate New York in through Vermont, New Hampshire, and even some areas in Massachusetts and Maine, as well as we start to see more and more snow show up. This isn't actually the primary time frame for snow actually though, as we're going to start to see as we move on more purples and pinks show up during this first portion of the storm. This is going to be about Monday afternoon time. I would say this is about 3 p.m. on Monday, December 30th. We see a lot of the purple showing up for upstate New York, southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire, and a lot of Massachusetts, indicating some sleet and freezing rain going on for these areas. It's going to be very, very icy and hard to predict what kind of precipitation type we're going to have, but just know it's going to be a mess, and a lot of areas might have some significant icing that creates a lot of problems, including power outages. Let's move on more towards 8 p.m. on Monday, December 29th. And we see some of the snow lingering there for northern Vermont. Really, things are ending. We see a lot of purples all over the place. So let's move on towards about 5 a.m. and we have a low pressure system developing offshore of New Jersey here that's going to make its way into New England. You can see a lot more blues reappearing. So after all that ice is said and done, we're going to have some back-end snow and significant snow at that. As we see upstate New York has switched to snow. All of New Hampshire, a lot of Maine, and a lot of Vermont has switched over to snow by this point. We see a little bit of ice, but all of the ice is pretty much done by this point. We start to see a lot more snowy conditions, and we're about to move on where we start to see that low pressure system develop even more, and we start to see more and more moderate to heavy snow for these regions. As you can see, we already have an L on the map there south of Rhode Island there, and that's going to be a 1004 millibar low pressure system that's going to make its way north and eastward as it heads towards Canada there, and it's going to really start to impact the northeastern states more and more. But we do see moderate snowfall for upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and in through Maine. Let's move on again. That was maybe about 8 a.m. on Tuesday, December 31st, and we're going to move on to the afternoon of Tuesday, December 31st, and we see more heavy snow heading onshore to Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and some more areas in upstate New York as well, as the low pressure system is located maybe over Cape Cod, I would say, by this point. Let's move on once more, and this is going to be about 8 p.m. on Tuesday. We see a 997 millibar low pressure system, and if it does stay this close to the shore of Maine, we will start to see those coastal regions switch back to rain. If it stays a little bit further offshore, we will start to see all snow for the coastal regions, so that's what's going to really dictate what happens in that department. We do see upstate New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and a lot of Maine still getting that moderate snowfall by 8 p.m. here. Let's move on to the Canadian model, and this is going to actually be the same time as the last frame, but you can see it has a little bit closer to the shore. It's a 991 millibar low pressure system on this model. We do see heavier snow there for Maine on this model. Let's move on towards Wednesday, January 1st morning time, and we see a 988 millibar low pressure system onshore of Canada, and we still see some light snow going on for the New England states, but it's basically all said and done after this point. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our modeled total snowfall maps for this storm, and then we're actually going to get into our actual direct weather snowfall forecast for this storm as well. Alright, so as you can see, this is going to be, first off, the NAM's total snowfall forecast, and this one's positive snow depth change, which is actually going to be taking into consideration temperatures and how wet everything is, how much rain is mixing in. And we only really see a few inches within those bluish, whitish colors. As we get into the purples and pinks, that's where we move up into like the 3 inches to 6 inches, and then in the pinks, maybe 6 to 12 inches of snow. So going to be very intense for those regions. Let's take a look at your Canadian model now, and this one is actually just the total snowfall, so towards the southern end of this, we will have a little bit less amounts than what this is showing, but we do have a lot of more pinks showing up, 6 to 12 inches of snow in the pinks, and then we even have 12 inches plus showing up on the Canadian model, which is odd. I think that's a bit much, and we do see the Canadian model kind of do weird stuff sometimes, so I would take this with a grain of salt. Just know that there is potential for 10 inches or maybe more, as some of the models are showing around 12 inches or a bit more. So that range there isn't really impossible. It's just not necessarily what we're expecting. Now, also the European model I wanted to show real quick, and it looks a lot like the Canadian model. In those pinks, that's where we're looking at about 9 to maybe 14 inches of snow. And in the purples, that's 6 to 10 inches of snow. All right, now let's get into our official direct weather snowfall forecast. And with our first layer here, we have that dusting to 3-inch region within all of these white regions. Here, I think there is great potential for Ohio and Kentucky and Michigan to get more snow than what this is showing, but that's going to be later on, and it's really going to be in the form of snow showers, so that's going to be hard to forecast. Just noted that areas in the western portion of this map that I'm showing no snowfall actually has potential to get a dusting or maybe an inch actually. Now we have a 3 to 6 inch region here in this light blue shade. And you can see this extends from upstate New York in through some of the mountainous regions of Massachusetts and then in through Vermont, New Hampshire, and the more inland regions of Maine. And then we have our 6 to 10 inch region, which is mostly for Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And last but not least, we have our 10 to 15 inch region here for the very hilly regions of Vermont, New Hampshire, and then very inland Maine there, where we're looking at the potential for 10 to maybe a few more inches there, as the Canadian model was alluding to, and we saw a few other models also thinking we could approach 10 inches or get a bit over. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. As I said before, be sure to share it with your friends and family if they do live in the affected regions, and I'll see you guys in the next video.